Hello, I'm back. I've added a few yellow blossoms. I like to, in my wreaths, you can do whatever color theory you like, but I like to move sort of around the color wheel, so I've gone from pink to orange and now I'm moving to yellow. And I thought I would show you a few more tricks. Sometimes I cut the bottles ahead of time and paint them after they're already cut. And that way, when they're still wet, even with spray paint, you can sprinkle them with glitter and the glitter will stick. This is a holographic glitter that I love, that I have made for my projects. So you could just paint it, and you could do it with a brush too. Paint it with a brush, and then rather than smoosh it into the glitter, it's going to ruin your glitter and it's not going to stick as well, I just sprinkle it on. So this is what I do when I do a public installation. I'll have bottles that are already cut ahead of time, and then the public will come and they'll use this wonderful, it's called glitter glaze. It's made by Sargent, and this company is so generous. They've donated to my public projects, donated this product. But it's a sparkly glue. I don't know if you can see. It's got a light shimmer. I've painted the inside of these with that sparkly glue. The color was done with spray paint. But you can also use the sparkly glue to add glitter. So I'll have the public come, cut a bottle, they'll put this sparkly glue on, and then sprinkle the glitter over a container however they like, and then leave it behind. So it's really fun for the public. It's fun for people of all ages. So I had a few little tricks. My dog is over here. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube, but she steals my water bottles and she thinks she's very stealth. So that's the noise in the background. She thinks I'm not looking, but I know she's doing it. So this bottle I painted in a way that one of my students did. I used, unfortunately, these two colors look very similar, but I actually used 3 different colors of paint. Painted it in a stripe, and then when you go to cut the spiral, I didn't think this would work when sometimes students will, they get so excited about the paint that they'll mix colors and it'll end up looking muddy. But this actually turned out great. So he just used 3 different colors. They were brighter than this. But then when you're finished, the spiral, isn't that the coolest? And you can imagine a 3rd color in there. So that's another effect that you can get. I painted this bottle as a surprise to show you. You can use 2-liter bottles, and I'm going to show you a pinwheel cut. But what I did with this bottle, I mostly cut off the bottom just so that you wouldn't have to watch me do that. And actually, I've taken the bottoms, and you can paint them and put glitter on them, and they look like gumdrops. And then you can use, on the 2-liter bottles, if you can find electric scissors, they work really well. They're super noisy, as is my Dalmatian. You can hear her. She's now on her 3rd trip taking the bottles into the other room. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut, and I won't do it with these anymore because it's so noisy, but I wanted you to see how they work. I'm going to cut a curve, and depending on how deep you make that curve, you'll end up with a fun little spiral at the end. This one, I didn't make the curve very deep, but it'll look like a pinwheel. So my friend figured this out. So now you're going to hold onto the edge that you just cut, and then just keep following that curve. So now I'm going to hold the edge again, follow the curve, and you can always trim these up afterwards. I like this one too because it doesn't waste very much of the bottle. You have very little scrap once you cut the bottom off. So keep going around the curve, and it doesn't have to be even. This is so imperfect, this process. But look how even mine turned out. Just kidding. Okay, so then now I've got these cut in curves all the way around. And now I can open it up, and there's going to be a surprise about the way that I painted it. So now I've got a pinwheel. And these are nice, the 2-liter bottles, because they take a lot of space up if you're trying to fill like a Christmas tree. So on this one I painted it yellow when the label was still on. Then I took the label off and I painted it that peach color. So what I've ended up with is a stripe on the inside. And if I were to take this to a public installation, somebody maybe would cut this and then they would paint on the glitter glaze, which actually looks really pretty just by itself. But then we always love to do this fairy dust kind of thing. My family doesn't love it so much because it travels. This is why I make my glitter in big chunks, because it's easier to clean up. But the little stuff is very fun too. This is holographic, so when it's out in the sunlight, it really catches the light. So that's a spiral cut. If you cut it deeper, let me do that with this one. And also, sometimes I'll use a mat knife to begin my cut, and then go in with the scissors, especially on the bottles that are thicker. So this one I'm going to cut my arc almost like I'm starting the spiral. I'm going to move kind of deep around there and go down toward the spout. And you can go as far as you want. I think it's nice to go close to the spout because then they'll open more. With the spirals, they spring more if you get closer to the spout. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to follow the curve, but I'm kind of making a bigger arch, and you'll have to play with this. And this time I'm cutting just a little bit under and leaving an edge. But I'm still following that curve. I'm just leaving a piece because it turns out so cute. I used to cut these edges off, and then a friend of mine said, no, leave it. And so we did. So now I open my bottle up. And then we have a little fun spiral at the end. Now when you are putting these on the wreath or the tree, you can take your bottle, put the fur piece through the center or whatever you wire it with. I just am so tickled to have found these wreaths. And then if you wanted to, you could put a second one on the inside and then just bend the wire piece over to hold it in place. And there you go. There's a bigger piece, a bigger bottle. And I wanted to show you a trick. I used to do this with a hairdryer, and then I switched to an embossing gun, a little bit hotter. This is an actual heat stripper gun, which is really hot. But I wanted to show you, and this should be done outside because it does create some fumes. You can, get this where you can see it, you can heat the plastic, and it'll take on a glass-like. Don't burn yourself. I'm a glass artist. That's how this all started. I wanted my students to be able to experience what it was like to work in glass. And through the years, we've made these discoveries. So you can heat and the plastic cools so quickly you can actually stop heating it and it'll stay in whatever position you put it in. But it just wrinkles it up a little bit. You don't want to do it too much or it ends up not being pretty. I had 7th and 8th grade boys that were known to make things that looked like sea cucumbers, which are not pretty. There. And so that sort of tricks the eye a little bit to make it look more like glass, a little less identifiable. Heating these doesn't work. They just end up kind of being ugly. And also cutting spirals out of the big 2-liter bottles doesn't work so well either because they end up being a very big and loose loop. So I have one other thing I think to show you here. Somebody at one of my installations, you can cut little strips. I painted one layer in green and one layer in yellow just to show you if you paint one color, let it dry, and then do another color, then you'll have one color on the inside and a different color on the outside. And it's cute too to you play with how you glitter them. You can put the glitter just on the tips, or how you paint them. Some people like to make them look like real poinsettias or real flower. I don't. I think it's more whimsical and fun to make them zany. But you could put the glitter just on the tips if you wanted to. Cutting little strips. And you can, I had a student do this. This is still a little wet from paint, but kind of accordion fold it and then crease it in place. And then you've got another, it does better when it's drier, but you have another texture that's more like a zigzag. So it's fun to mix up not only the colors, but the textures of what you're doing. So I'm going to get to work on putting these on this wreath, and I will get back with you tomorrow.